Okay, so the last class, quick recap. We were discussing about variables. We were discussing about variables, classes, and methods, right? How to create a variable. In variable also there are different type of variables for there, local variable and class variable. And we have discussed how to declare a class. We have been discussing with how to declare a method, right? So quickly let me open the developer console. I guess now we are clear how to write a program in the Salesforce. How to write a program in Salesforce. We are clear with this, right? So this is the class we have created yesterday. And how many methods we have? 3 methods we have. How many methods we have? There are 3 methods. 2 are private method and 1 is public method. So if anybody is calling this class outside of this class, like if somebody like a VF page is calling or Lightning is calling or LWC is calling this class, then only one method can be accessible. If developer console or anonymous window you are calling the class, only the public method can be accessible. Private methods cannot be accessible. So this is what we have seen yesterday. I hope everybody is clear on that. So today the topic is, we'll talk about the controllers. We'll talk about the controllers. Okay, before coming to controllers definition, first I wanted to give you the understanding of why we use the controllers. Why we use the controllers. Let's assume that I have a VF page. I have a Visualforce page. VF page is nothing but Visualforce page, right? And let's assume that I'm entering the first number, second number, third number, right? Let's assume that these are the user input that is expected from users. There are 3 input fields. And I have 2 radio buttons. And this is a greater. And this is a smallest. Okay. And bottom we have a calculate button here. This is a calculate button. Right. And finally we have a result. We have a result which is showing the output value. Result is basically the output value which I'm showing here. Right. So let's assume that I'm entering the value here. $99, $50, $555, and $8. Okay. If I click on greater, if I click on a greater and calculate, it should show me the result as greater number, which is a 5555. All 5 it should show, right? In case if I click on smallest, then it should show me the smallest number, which is 888. So based on the selection of radio button, I wanted to show the value here, right? So this is my final output. This is my, at the end of the development, this is what I wanted to implement. Okay, so based on the page, so what we do in the Visualforce page, we implement the UI. We implement the UI, like we build the UI front end part. What are the first number UI input field, second number input field, third number input field, and the button, calculate button, and result output field. This is, so these all we can do it in the Visualforce page. But whenever the user enter the values in first number, second number, third number, somebody has to capture these information. Somebody at the back end has to capture the information. Somebody means there should be some container. There should be some container like num1, num2, num3. There should be some container which holds the information that was entered by user. Whatever the user enter the information, whatever the user enter the information, they can store it in the one container, right? Right now, so far, whatever we have done with the examples, VF page is just we are able to enter this information on the UI part. But at the back end, we are not capturing what user has entered. We are not capturing and storing anywhere. So in order to capture the information, whatever the user has entered, in order to capture that, we need a controller. We need a controller. So controller means Apex class. Controller means Apex class, right? So now the coming to the part, like num1, num2, num3 will declare it as a integer. Like we will say integer num1, integer num2, integer num3, right? We will say this information. This is as a normal declaration, but how do you capture the information, whatever is entered in the VF page, how do you capture here? So in order to capture the information, capture means I have to set this value here. I need to set the 99 to number 1. I need to set 555 to num2. I need to set 88 to num3. So we have to use the set command. Set. We have to use the set command. How do you declare the container here in the Apex class? If you are preferring for the Visualforce page, you have to declare it. You have to declare the variable, and inside the variable, you have to mention that set. And in order to get the output, like you took the set, that means we are set all the information to the num1, num2, num3. Now you have to get the information. For getting the information, we use this. So basically, this will be for each variable will have a set and get. Each variable will have a set and get. Where it is used to set means I'm capturing the information. Get means I am pushing back to the VF page. Like here result. Result, we need another variable called result. Right? Whatever the result has the information. Whatever the result has the information. If you wanted to push back, then this needs to have a get. Get is going to give you the information here. Right? So this is called as a controller. How do you communicate between the VF to controller? Okay, this is fine. In depth, we have understood. But in order to communicate VF page to Apex controller, how do you communicate it? So we have a command in the VF page which says that controller equal to, we have to mention the Apex class. We have to mention the Apex class, so that what will happen? This particular VF page is talking to this Apex class. So basically this is the key, controller. When you mention the controller equal to this particular Apex class, means this VF page is trying to talk to this Apex class and get all the information and pass all the information to Visual Apex class and get the information from Apex class, both of them, right? Get and set. Now this is the concept. This is the concept of controller. Now write down what is the controller. What is the controller? What is the controller here? Controller is nothing but Apex module that controls the data and logic in a Visualforce page. In a Visualforce page is called controller. So what is the controller here? This Apex module. Apex module is nothing but Apex class that controls the data. Whatever the data is entered in the Visualforce page, it controls it. It takes it and it stores it into one container. It controls the data and do the logic. Whatever the logic is there, it will does the logic, and basically that logic will be populated on the Visualforce. Right? That is a controller. And controllers are, there are three types of controllers. Three types of controllers. First one is standard controller. Second one is custom controller. And third one is extension controller. Right? Extension controller. The one which we discussed right now, the example, this is called as a custom controller. This is a custom controller. Custom controller is nothing but implementing some custom logic. Implementing custom logic Okay. So custom controller is nothing but implementing a custom logic. Implementing a custom logic, and this logic we will refer in Visualforce page. How do you refer this custom logic? By using the controller. By using the controller. Right? By using the controller, we will link the custom controller to the Visualforce page. What is the standard controller? Standard controller is nothing but existing object. Existing object, calling the existing object. Calling existing object. When I say calling existing object means For example, I have an account object, or I have an opportunity object, or I have a contact object. These are existing in the Salesforce. These are already present, right? I wanted to call existing table into the Visualforce page. I wanted to call the existing table, which are the standard objects or Salesforce objects. If I wanted to call a Salesforce object without any customization, I wanted to call directly the Salesforce object within the Visualforce page. How do we do that? Using the standard controller. Using the standard controller equal to, we will mention account. Standard controller equal to account. For the custom controller, how do we mention? Controller equal to this Apex class name. If you wanted to use a Salesforce object, we have to use the standard controller equal to account. Standard controller is the key here. In case, let's assume that you are using the standard controller, but on top of it, you want to extend the logic. You want to extend the custom logic. You want to extend the custom logic on top of Salesforce object. On top of Salesforce object. On top of Salesforce object, you wanted to extend. So how do you use it here in the Visualforce? By using the extend keyword. By using the extend keyword. You can extend it, you can see, you can call that another class on top of account object. Okay, there are three type of controllers. Standard controller, which we can call directly the Salesforce object. Custom controller means I can implement the business logic in the Apex class and call that controller in the Visualforce page. Extend is nothing but on top of the standard controller or on top of the custom controller. You wanted to extend the more logic to that. Then we have to use the extend. Now let's go ahead and see with the example so that you will get the clarity. Okay, I'll implement the same first number, second number, third number, same UI will implement in the Visualforce page. So let me close all of this. File, new, Visualforce page. Okay, PF underscore 1606. Let's say that greater or less of two numbers. Basically, we are comparing the three numbers. We are comparing the three numbers. Out of the three numbers, which one is the greater, which one is the smallest, right? So we'll say that greater, small. Right. As soon as we create a Visualforce page, by default, the structure will be coming as an Apex page and end with the Apex page. So we have seen all these examples before. So I'll simply straightforward go ahead and implement the logics. So first what we have to do, Apex : form. Why we have to use form? As I explained, because form is necessary if we have an input field here. Form is necessary if we have an input field in the page. We have to put that input field inside the form. Otherwise, the Apex class is going to throw an error. Now inside this Apex : page block. Let's give the title equal to calculations Apex : page block sessions Apex class page block session, right? So inside this title equal to calculate the greater or smaller smaller. Now inside this page block session, we are going to put page block session item. Page block session item. Okay. Now inside this item, let's go ahead and put the output. Apex column, output field. Right now we are using only the label. So let's give the label name, value equal to, enter the first name, first number, right? Now, next one is we need an input field. Apex column, input text. Okay, so we'll do that later. Now we are going to copy this section item. We need it for another 2 times, right? Second number and the third number. Second number, third number. Enter the first number, second number, third number. Now session item is closed here. Now what else we need it? First number, second number, third number is done. Now we need a radio buttons. We need a radio buttons. Now after the session item, let's go ahead and put the apex column. We have a select radio. Okay, inside the radio button, we have a different keywords which is called as a, let's use the label name. Label name is select to calculate. Now inside this we needed 2 options. One is a greater and another one is a smaller. Apex column, select options. This everything we have discussed, right? With the different examples we have discussed. So same thing I'm using it here. And inside this I have a item label. Let's say greater, right? And whenever the user selected, I wanted to store it in one of the value. Let's say it is a G. Now I need it same for smaller. Smaller, and let's store it in yes. Now after that, we need a one button, calculate button. Right after the radio, apex column, that is a command button. We have a command button and the title equal to calculate, not the title, value equal to, because I wanted to show the value there. Value equal to calculate, right? And what else we need? After the calculate button, we need to have a result that is going to display here. Right, for the result, we are going to use the same thing, but here instead of the input text, this is the output text. This is the output text. And the value is, the result is fine. So let's go ahead and save it. And let's see the preview. Okay. So, but it is showing me in the 2 columns. It's not in the same line, right? It's in the 2 columns. This is one column it is taking, this is another column. Let me put it everything into the one column. So apex page block, sections, columns equal to 1. Let's see. It's refreshing it. Okay, everything came here. That's perfect. Okay, this is the output, right? We can enter any number here, 75, 555, and 44, gender, small, and I click on calculate, nothing will come. Nothing will come because we have not written any logic. We have not written any logic. We have not written any logic. Let me store this before I take it. Okay. So whatever I'm entering here, first number, second number, third number, it has to store in one container, right? As I explained it, let's go ahead and implement the Apex class first. So let's say CL underscore today's date 1606 underscore what we are doing greater smaller. Copy this. Okay. Now the class is created. What are the things that I needed here? 3 variables, actually 4 variables I needed. One is for first number, second number, third number, and then result. So I need to declare a 4 variables. So let's say integer num1, integer num2, integer num3, and integer num4. Sorry, this is a result, right? So these 4 variables I needed. So if in case if this class is, if this Visualforce page is going to call this class, whether will it be accessible this? No, because these are private variables. I have not declared it here. What is the variable? Class variables are, these are private variables. In order to access, in order to expose these variables to the Visualforce page, what we have to do? We have to use the public integer num1, public integer num2, public integer num3, public integer result. Now these variables can be exposed to the Visualforce page. That is good. This is exposed. Now how can I set whatever the user has entered here? How can I set the variables back to the Visualforce page? In order to set that, we have to use set as well as the get. Why I'm using it? In real time, it is like we do not know, like if we are declaring any variables, okay, future time, we might need to get the values also. So instead of simply doing the set, use the get also. So in the real time, the declaration will be set and get. So that in future, if there are any changes on the Visualforce page, or if they wanted to access these variables anywhere within the code, within the Visualforce code, they can use it, right? So that's the reason we always use set and get. What is the error here? Okay, there is no error. Let's save it. Right. Now I have a 4 variables, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So whenever the user click on a calculate button, whenever user click on a calculate button, okay, I'm entering the details. These details are stored in num1, num2, num3. That is fine. Now, how can I capture whether user entered greater or user entered smaller? We have to capture these values, right? Based on these values, whenever I click on the calculate, I need to have some logic. There should be some business logic on calculate button. As soon as the user click on a calculate button, I wanted to execute some logic, some business logic to identify which one is the greater, which one is the highest, right? So to do that, what I need one method. Whenever the user click on this button, I need to call a method. So let's go ahead and create public void. Then we have to use main calculation. Main calculation. Now, let's go ahead and implement the separate logic for greater and smaller. Void smaller. Void smaller. So total how many methods we have? 3 methods are there. One is public and 2 are private. So these 2 methods cannot be called from Visualforce page. Only one method is called from Visualforce page. For my requirement, that should be fine. If one method is exposed over here, that should be fine. So as soon as user click on a calculate button, I wanted to check whether user entered the radio button greater or smaller. Whether user entered greater or smaller. So how can I do that? I can do it in main calculate, because this is the main calculate which is going to get the information. Now, how can I capture that? In order to capture this, I need to have some variable here. In order to set and get, I have to use the one more variable to capture the radio button option, which is public integer choice. Which choice the user has selected, whether it is a greater or setter, greater or smaller, right? Now, so that in the main method, the first thing what I'll check whether my choice, what are the choice is there, what are the choice user has. How can I know that whether choice is, what is the choice? I'm storing the value here, G and S. Whenever the user enter the grade, whenever user select the greater number, whenever they select greater at the back end code, the Apex class assumes that it has a item value G. Based on the item value, we can identify whether it is selected greater or smaller. So I can use choice equal to G. If it is a choice equal to G, then call the greater. Call the greater. Else, if choice equal to S smaller, then call the smaller. Else, simply print result equal to 0. Why I'm saying else condition, another else condition, for example, user not selected any radio button. They simply clicked on the calculate. Without selecting the radio button, they clicked on the calculate button. So I need to have some value here. So that's the reason by default, if none of the choice are selected, we wanted to print the result equal to 0. Okay, it is giving error here because choice is storing the string. But what we declared data type integer we declared. What it should be? It should be string. It should be string because we are storing the choice as a G or S, greater or smaller, right? Now it is gone. Now let's go ahead and write the main logic in the greater. What is the logic that we are checking? We wanted to compare the three numbers. We wanted to compare the three numbers, whether num1 is greater than num2 and num1 is greater than num3. This is one condition. Okay, else if. Next one is num2. Num2 is greater than num1 and num2 is greater than num3. This is another condition. Now else. Now if num1 is greater than num2, num1 is greater than num3 means num1 value is highest, right? So what we will do, we will store it as result equal to num1. If it is num2 is highest, we'll store the result equal to num2. Otherwise, by default, if num1, num2 is not highest number, then definitely num3 will be the highest number. Now same thing, we'll copy in the smaller, but only the difference will be if num1 is less than num2, if num1 is less than num3, we'll store the smallest number. Same thing with the num2. If num2 is smallest of num1 and num3, we'll store the num2. And finally, we'll store it in num3. Now my apex class logic is done. Apex class logic is done. What we declared the class variables. This is the class variables. And we declared public method. And then we declared private method. This is private method 1 and the next one is private method 2. So inside the private method 1, what we are doing it? Identifying the highest number. Highest number. And in method 2, identifying the smallest number. Okay. And these two methods are called from the public method. This is to if user selected greater radio button. If user selected the greater radio button, then greater method is going to execute. In case if user is selected the smaller radio button, then smaller method is going to execute it. Now let's go ahead and save this. Now, till now we know how to create a Visualforce page, how to create a Apex class, right? Same thing we repeated again. Today we repeated the same thing. There is no new thing which we have done today. Till now we created two separate. One is Visualforce page I created, one is Apex class I created it. Now how can I link my Visualforce page and with the Apex class? Now what we have done in the Apex class, we have implemented the custom logic. Now in order to connect my Apex class to the Visualforce page, what we have to use? We have to use controller equal to my Apex class name. Controller equal to my Apex class name. Now this Visualforce page is connected to this Apex class. This Visualforce page is got the root to connect Apex class, right? Now we have the Apex class, right? Now inside the Apex class we have a variable. This has a set and get. So whenever the user enter the first name, whenever user enter the first name, I wanted to store it in value. What is the value that I wanted to store? Num1. But this is the num1. But in order to call my variable, in order to call the variable that is declared in the class, we have to have a always curly braces, exclamation, and closing curly brace. This is very important. This is very important. Curly brace, exclamation, then you have to give your variable name. If you mention your variable name simply, still it won't be connecting to the class. If you mention curly brace, exclamation, that means this variable has to connect with class. So that the Apex, the Visualforce page, the backend code is going to understand when you have a exclamation, that means this has to have a connection with some Apex class. What is that Apex class? In the Apex class, in the starting of the Visualforce page, we have mentioned the Apex class name, right? Same thing here. Input text, where are we storing the value? We have something called value equal to. This we are going to store it in num2. And whenever the user entered the third number, we are going to store it in num3. Perfect. Now the result, once I have the logic is executed, once the logic is executed, where are we storing the values? We are storing it in result. So output text also has the value equal to result. In order to connect this, we have to use the curly brace exclamation. Now this is fine. All my variables are connected. All my variables are connected. No, there is a one pending. Choice is pending. Choice is this variable is, I have to know whether user has selected the radio button greater or smaller. Whether user has selected, which option they have selected. So how do I capture? I have to capture it in radio. Select radio. We have a value equal to choice. Now all my variables are connected to the Visualforce page. Everybody is playing a role here. Now second thing is method. Connecting a method to the Visualforce page. When the method should be executed, whenever the user click on calculate button. Whenever user click on a calculate button, I wanted to execute a method. So on the button, we have a something called action. This is a Apex pages.action. That means on click of the button, I wanted to fire some action. What is the action that I wanted to fire? I wanted to call the method, which is called as a, what is the method name? Main method, main calculate. This is the method I wanted to calculate. Clear? Now again from starting, I'm connected to my Apex class. This Visualforce page is connected to the Apex class. Whenever the user enter the value, I'm storing it num1. Okay, how do I'm passing it? I'm binding my variable with the curly braces and exclamation. And second number is storing to num2. Third number is storing to num3. And radio button options are storing in choice. And here is the main calculation. And finally, I'm displaying the result. This looks fine. Let's go ahead and refresh this. Now let me enter 55. Now 343. Now 333. Calculate. Result 0. What is the reason? I have not selected my radio options. I have not selected my radio options. It will come here. When I click on the button, it will come to the main calculation. Is my choice is greater? No. Go to the else condition. Is my choice is smaller? No. Go to the else condition. What is the value it is storing? 0. So that is what I am getting it. If I select greater, calculate. See 343. If I select smallest, calculate 555, smallest. Clear? Any questions on the Visualforce page connecting to the using the custom controller? Okay. Now, so far we have done it using the primitive data type. Let me use the SObject and show you that. Using the SObject, probably we'll take the account object. We have a account object, right? So let me create a new Visualforce page. Let's say that VF underscore today's date is 16/06, and the Visualforce page is create a account. Create account. Let's create an account using the Visualforce page. Now, what are we going to? So basically, in order to create an account, first of all, let me create a Apex class so that you will get a clarity. So CL underscore 16/06. Let's say that underscore create ACC. Create ACC. Okay. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to simply create a account, right? So let me go ahead and declare a method public void create ACC, right? So what I'm doing here, creating it account, creating a initializing a object account A equal to new account. And what are the values we needed in order to create an account? Mandatory values are name is, which is important. So let's say that creating from custom controller, or let's say simply custom controller. Okay, along with the name, we'll take phone number, phone equal to, let's say that 9999. Next, a dot fax equal to 1111, right? And next, a dot industry equal to, let's say, energy. Now finally we'll insert it. So this is what we were doing it, right? Till now this is what we are doing. What we are doing it, we are hard coding the values. We are hard coding the values. But instead of hard coding the values, let's ask the user. Let's create a Visualforce page that will ask user to enter the name, user to enter the phone number, user to enter the fax, user to enter the industry. Any questions? So user to enter the industry, will ask user to enter all these information, and based on the user input, we will create it. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do it. So here we are going to ask the user input. So whenever we ask the user input, it has to be inside the Apex colon form. Apex colon form. And let's take the Apex colon page block section, standard one page block. Okay, inside the page block, let's declare the title equal to account. Title equal to account. Now inside the page block, let's put the Apex colon page block section, and inside this section again let's put the title equal to create new account. Create new account. Now again inside this section we are going to declare another section item apex colon page block section item. Section item, okay, and inside this we need to have a label apex colon output label. Apex colon output label. What is the label name that I want? The first one will be the value equal to account name. Enter the account name, and then I wanted to capture the input text. Whatever the user has entered, I wanted to capture it in input text. Okay. Now we'll repeat same thing for second one. What we need? Account phone number. And then what else we need? Account fax. And we need an account industry. Right. So once we enter this information, finally what else we need? We need a button to save. We need a button to save the values. Value equal to save. Let's say save account record. Okay, let's save it. Now my Visualforce page is completed, right? So let me go ahead and preview it. Okay, again this is coming in two columns. So section columns equal to 1. Let's save this. Okay, refresh. Okay, perfect. Account name, account phone number, fax, and industry save button. Right. So now what are the details that I need in the Apex class? I need to store name, phone number, fax, industry that was entered by user. So total I need 1, 2, 3, 4 variables I need it. I need 4 variables. So this class is called from Visualforce page. So I have to use the public name. So in order to store that, set and then get next public. And I have to store the phone number, set get, and next public string fx fax. I'm going to store it in fx, and then public string. We have an industry, right? This set and get. Now I'm getting all these values. So what I can do that instead of hard coding it, I can simply pass the variables whatever the user has entered. Whatever the user has entered, I can simply pass it here. Right? Now let's save this. Is my Visualforce page is connected to this? No, not yet. So in order to connect, I have to use the controller equal to class name. And what are the variables that I have? Input text, value equal to combine and m. Then I'm going to store the phone number. Combine the phone number. And then I have a fax value equal to fax, and then account industry value equal to industry. And then finally we need a button. For button, we have to call the create account, right? So as soon as I click on a button, what should happen? The action apex.pages. What is the action? This method should be firing it. Save. Right? So let's open the account record here. Accounts. Let's go to the details. What are the industry values? Let's say banking. Okay. Okay, so I'll use the banking here. Okay, I'm creating a account. Custom controller. Right? Phone number 444 FX 555 in the industry banking. Save the record. It did save it. If I refresh this, see here, custom controller, right? It created the custom controller. If you wanted to try one more time, custom controller 1, 2, 3. This record is not there. Custom controller 1, 2, 3 is not there. Again, click on save. It's saved. Let's go ahead and refresh. See, custom controller 1, 2, 3, right? So this is how we connect our Visualforce page to the custom controller. We will connect our Visualforce page to the custom controller. And what is the logic that is written in the custom controller? It's all depending on what is the UI is expected here based on the requirement. So same logic we have to write. And in case as soon as I click on a save account record, I want a pop-up message saying that save record successfully. Record is saved successfully. We'll do that later. But for now, let's understand the basic concept. Okay. Is everybody clear how to call a controller from the Visualforce page and how to pass the variables and how to calculate the logic and get it into the Visualforce page? Is everybody clear on that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the assignment for today. Create a contact record from Visualforce page. Create a contact record from the Visualforce page. And coming to trial head. Visualforce. Okay. Complete this trial head. Complete this trial head, and second assignment is create a contact record from the Visualforce page. So what you have to do, you have to build a UI first. You have to build a UI first, then you have to write a logic inside the Apex and call that Apex inside the Visualforce page. Interview questions. What is the controller? How do you use in Visualforce page? What is the difference between standard controller and custom controller? What is the difference between the standard controller and the custom controller? When do you use extended control? How do you call a method from Visualforce page? How do you call Apex method from Visualforce page? So these are the interview questions. That's all for today. Anybody has questions before I log off? Okay then. Thank you.